Top 5 coaches on the hot seat in 2024. I like this logo that Emory came up with here. Yesterday I mentioned the coaches that need a reboot, a refresh, just something, a new coat of paint. Nothing's tragic yet, but a new coat of paint. Today, these are coaches that are legitimately on the hot seat. One of them, the fifth one, is going to be a bit of a stretch, but see if you guys can follow me here. Number 5 is Kirk Ferentz. I firmly believe that Iowa and this offensive coordinator hire that he makes, which he has not made yet, is going to be very huge for him because the whole world's about to change. His strategy worked for a long time, but you cannot just decide, well, as long as we beat Minnesota and maybe just lose to Wisconsin if they're good and beat these other teams in this side of the Big Ten and go 10-2, we're going to be fine. That's not going to be the case anymore because the style of offense they were playing is not a 10-2 style of offense in the new Big Ten. So this is a crucial moment for Kirk Ferentz, and I don't think he's ever going to get fired, but he might get the old, coach, you've been here a long time. There's that fishing boat you don't get out on all that much. Why don't you finally do that and take your wife to Greece like she's been asking you for all this time? I think maybe that happens. They have a new athletic director there in Beth Getz who's been there, and she's been the interim, but also, if she wants to keep that job long term, she's going to have to navigate this new Big Ten and win games.
I don't think I could disagree more simply because he just won 10 games. Who in the hell are you bringing into Iowa that is going to win 10 games on a regular basis? Yeah. And what are your expectations at Iowa? Are you hoping that you're going to be kings of the Big Ten one day, or are you hoping that you're just going to get regular playoff spots? Guess what? If he wins 10 games, I don't know if that's going to be good enough for a playoff spot every year because what are all of the other new schools doing, and what's Ohio State and Michigan are going to occupy 2 spots, and there's Penn State. So I think there's a lot we don't know about this playoff and how it's going to affect teams, and that's what I mean. Like, if you win 10 games, but you're not getting into the playoff, like, how does that change views?
My point here is I don't think he's going to win 10 games anymore.
Okay, well, that's a fair enough point, but I think if you're Iowa, this man would have to do a lot worse than having a bad offense run by his son to get the old boot from Iowa City. I do think he'd be leaving on his terms. Now, maybe there'd be a nudge if over the next few years that starts to creep down, but I mean, this dude's won 10 games 3 times in the last 6 years at Iowa. I mean, that's pretty impressive, and he's done more than that, too.
Excuse me. I would give up a body part if my favorite team won 10 games.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I get it. I'm not trying to knock that his coach, but, the way that the offense has devolved.
You're looking at the trend of the future.
Yeah, the trend of the future. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But, man, they're in a conference. Yeah, they don't have to play Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State every year, and they're not going to have Washington, Oregon, USC, whatever. And there's going to be a couple of teams that are right below them that might get better, but golly, be careful what you wish for.
Well, I don't know, and look, I'm not saying he needs to, but I just think that it's going to be interesting to see him adapt.
Yeah, you say this would be a little bit different. Maybe
it would be different. Yeah. Like this one's a put line. The rest of the 4, I'm probably not going to have to really go that deep in, but this one was the one I thought would spark a little discussion. And I'm not a guy who's, has to be right all the time. I mean, hell, I'm married. So
right anytime.
I just think that applying the term hot seat anywhere within 1,000 yards of Kirk Ferentz
might be a little bit over.
I think there's a different term you could use for it because I understand where you're coming from. But I don't think he's on a hot seat by any stretch.
Yeah, I do think he's in the adapt or die phase though. And he's on the early part of it.
That'd be a good top 5. Adapt or die. Dabo would be in that one.
Dabo's certainly in that one. Manny Navarro, by the way, wrote a great column today about the winners and losers in the ACC and the transfer portal. And his first line on Clemson is to win in it, you have to go to it.
Right.
You have to go. You have to go.
If you're going to run, you got to go to the start and finish line, right?
I mean, I know we all joke on their offense and everything like that, but all you have to do is watch the other side of the football to understand how brilliant their defense is and why they're still able to win 10 games despite they have such an atrocious offense. And that's now seemingly been worked on and is going to be fixed, and we'll see.
He hasn't made the hire yet, but I will say I just think that because the schedule is going to get different.
Sure,
he's not going to get the schedule was also kind of allowing him to do that for a long time.
Yeah,
because he also had look, PJ Fleck is in this same boat, and I might have maybe put him on here too. PJ Fleck's in this same boat. Can you do this same thing at Minnesota and expect to keep your job, even though you've been one of the better coaches they've ever had in recent history? Can you continue to do that because there's no Big Ten West anymore? You cannot play the same style, at least completely. You're going to have to adapt on some levels.
Yeah, I think, too, with the Big Ten, I think their schedules get harder because I don't know that that's exactly the case in the SEC because they're only adding 2 teams, but with the Big Ten, I feel like the way it was already set up with their divisions, there was teams that were missing out on a lot of the other good opponents, and it's going to be harder to dodge. Like the years where you don't play Ohio State or Michigan or like the 5th best team or whatever. It just felt like it felt how that worked sometimes. Is you got a good draw or a bad draw, and you might miss out on some teams. And I think with more quality opponents, you might still miss some teams, but you're going to have other opportunities where you're playing a good team. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's why I think Kirk Ferentz
not to say anything, and you got all 3 of them.
But no, that's why I think Kirk Ferentz is going to have to adapt because, again, it's not going to be that year like, oh, crap, we do have Ohio State and Michigan. All right, well, maybe that's a 9-3 or 8-4 year, but this year we don't have either of them. So,
but
this
who
year
they could beat one of those 3 teams because of the fact that they're going to keep that game dummy. Now, some of them would just outrace them.
Yeah, but like offense. with Oregon in particular coming in,
Iowa's 10-4. But
I mean, you're not going to dodge Penn State, Michigan, Oregon, Washington all in the same year. Like they're coming at you. It's coming at you. Number 4, Sam Pittman at Arkansas. He's He's brought in an old Bobby Petrino as the offensive coordinator. Ask the last SEC coach who did that how that worked out for him. Now, I do think Sam Pittman will give him far more autonomy. And Sam Pittman loves Arkansas. He's an Arkansas alum. Like, this is his dream job. He's going to go out for it. But, things are about to get more difficult in the SEC. And even though because of Texas and Oklahoma, that is not going to be met with grace from the boosters and alums. They're going to be like, okay, we can't sit around and let Texas, go even further, especially the old school ones. The guys who are like the super old Arkansas money are probably excited about Texas coming back in and want to see some comparison in that, even though they're so far apart right now.
You mean like Texas joining the SEC is going to spark them to go back to the days of Frank Broyles?
But no, what I'm saying is like, okay, Jerry Jones was he's the big donor, and there's other rich dudes that donate that are his age, right? That Arkansas or Texas was their biggest rival, or the one they hated the most, even though it wasn't always the case with Tech. But that was a huge deal for them back in that time. Texas coming back in, we talk about A&M all the time, but I think there's some I'm talking old school money in Arkansas that's going to be pissed that Texas is so far ahead of them right now.
Yeah, and of course they played some non-conference games. Matt Jones at quarterback had a game or 2 against him, but yeah,
that's freaking a billion years ago. I mean, that's the thing is those old people he's referring to are like 95 now.
But
so
they're talking about
the I'm just talking about money.
69.
Yeah. I mean, here's the bottom line: you got to do something because you were 14th or you're 13th out of 14th. You're about to be at best 13th out of 16th. I mean, or 14th out of 16th or whatever, because you're not going to be above Texas or Oklahoma. So, with divisionless football in play. That's going to be, fun to see, like the top to bottom rankings where they are. But yeah, they're very much in danger of being 15th, 16th. I mean, thank God for Vanderbilt, basically, if you're Arkansas, because other than them and Mississippi State last year, you were the worst team in the SEC. And there's not a lot of hope about what's going on moving forward either, I don't feel like. I mean, I think, Sam Pittman is very much on the hot seat, and they're already falling behind. And now you've got 2 especially one, old rivals rolling in that are going to be above you for starters. And so, I mean, what do you want Arkansas to be if you're an Arkansas fan?
Everything's compounding.
Yeah, I mean, they're just falling further and further down the slide, and there's not anything that's really propping them up at this point. So, he's got to get to winning, and he's got to, get some things moving in the right direction because, last year, if they had made the decision to move on, I don't think anybody would have been surprised. But now especially, dude, it's now or it's never because Arkansas is fading and they need to get a spark back.
Yeah. Number 3, Dave Aranda, right here at Baylor. Look, it's no question. I mean, he sat right here, and he knows that, this is a make-or-break year for him at Baylor because they've changed the NIL strategy. He's changed the entire offensive staff, more or less. All that, he's taken over defensive play calling. These are all moves the signal it is make or break for Dave Aranda at Baylor. We don't probably need to go into as much detail on this one because we have breaking news too about Jim Harbaugh is going to the Chargers, and so I want to talk about that before the end of the show. Okay. So we can maybe shorten this on Dave Aranda, but he's certainly on that spot.
We've discussed this ad nauseum.
Yeah. So
it's you're reaching the point of apathy in some cases. Definitely have already hit the frustration levels, and folks just want to see a product that's competitive, and they want to see wins. And I don't think it's demanding 12 wins a year or anything. But when you followed up what was the greatest year in program history, that's great. But rather than building off of that, that's not your life jacket. It's not something we look back on fondly. We're like, oh, that's why you still have the job at this point, basically, because other than that year, which was the outlier, it's been bad.
Yeah.
It's been 3 years of not good. So this is year 5. I mean, I like Dave Aranda a lot, but, I mean, this is the reality of the business, and I know he wants to do it the right way, but you still have to win. And that's unfortunate in some cases when you're trying to mold men, but that is the bottom line. That is what puts butts in the seats, not degrees and things like that. And so he's doing the off the field the right way. He's done the on the field a little bit of the right way, but now it's been a couple years since that's even looked like it's even known what it was doing exactly. And so, yeah, you've got to get it in order this season.
Number 2. Chip Kelly, and this might be solved in a week anyway. If he's going to go take an OC job, then UCLA, that's a whole new can of worms. But he certainly barely made it out with his life this year, and has kind of crossed people a little bit the wrong way. And he had the great talk about how he thinks college football should be, but that also sounds like a guy who might be over it himself and going back to the NFL as an OC, a way easier job than being a college head coach.
My personality and just the way I am as I get older, I would much rather be in the NFL than college football as a coach. I'm not even a question in my mind.
Yeah.
Not even a question. Drafting versus recruiting, ding, NFL. I mean, just in terms of playing the best of the best every single week, if that's what's up your alley, like whatever your flavor is, unless you just really like recruiting.
The hours are incredibly better.
The offseason, I mean, everything other than if you love the game of college football, I don't know what a single thing is other than pride in your alma mater and those types of things that would sway you versus the NFL.
Well, and look, here's the deal. There's only those 32 NFL jobs in any position, right? Whether it's head coach on down to whatever coach you are. But that's the thing is that being an NFL coach is not an easy job.
No.
Like, it's a really hard job. But comparing it to college football, it's like a way easier job. It's insane. And it's not an easy job. Number 1, Billy Napier. I thought this was a great hire by Florida, and I'm still not convinced that it's not, but he's going to have to win and do something fast, because the first 2 seasons for him they've shown no growth at all. Like, he went 6-6 and then 5-7, lost in a bowl game. Like, he's got a losing record there. They don't look any different. They don't seem to have any big time recruiting prospects and all of that. It's just there. And they're in the SEC. They're a brand name. Like, you can't just be kind of there if you're the Florida Gators.
Yeah, I mean, Scott Strickland said he's not on the hot seat, and I've seen people point out that he's still, if he's on the hot seat, then where's Shane Beamer? Because they've beaten, that's the team he's been able to beat both years. But, he seems to be just kind of in a, maybe it's not even him so much as Florida just seems like they're in a weird place where they're just kind of in a middle ground of they're not good like you'd expect them to be on a more regular basis, and clearly not anywhere near where they were in some of their more glorious years recently. They're also not like a terrible football team. Like, it's an easy choice to just throw him out and be like, yeah, we're done, we're moving on. He's just in the middle, and that's a bad spot to be in as well. And so, I think that you've got to at least see some signs of progress. Like, you can't go win the SEC East anymore, but you should be competitive. You should show some signs of progress. And if you're just kind of still in the same spot you were a couple of years ago, then that would be awfully concerning and a huge red flag, and maybe prompt them to make a move. But Scott Strickland says he's not on the hot seat. A bad season can change that in a hurry.
And they have the toughest schedule. Honestly, if I had 22-year-old me had sat in a lab and gone screw Florida and made a schedule, that's the one I would have come up with.
Yeah, Scott Strickland is a good AD, and he's in
but they're
charge.
Just kind of there.
He's not the only one that would make that decision if things don't go well quickly.
Yeah.
All right.
But yes, it's official.